The first convoy of humanitarian aid has arrived in Nagorno-Karabakh after the recent fighting. People say they have little food, fuel or electric power. Azerbaijan has tightened its grip on the region, dominated by ethnic Armenians, after a ceasefire earlier this week. Videos have emerged of Russian peacekeepers delivering aid after Azerbaijan claimed full control of the enclave. It's internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan. The Red Cross has also sent a convoy of aid. Meanwhile, hundreds of ethnic Armenians are stranded at Nagorno-Karabakh's main airport. They gathered at what is now a Russian peacekeeping base. Residents say they're in search of protection.
My grandchildren are with me. They are frightened and shaking with fear. They cannot sleep at night. Russian peacekeepers are here, and we think it will be safe. So we stay at the airport, although we sleep 12 people in a car.
Across the border, a U.S. congressional delegation is in Armenia to meet Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. The visit comes at a time of mass protests against Pashinyan for his handling of the conflict. The foreign ministers of Azerbaijan and Armenia have raised the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh at the UN General Assembly. The Azerbaijani envoy said ethnic Armenians living in the enclave will be integrated as equal citizens. The Armenian envoy pushed for a UN mission to monitor humanitarian conditions.
All efforts have now been mobilized to address the immediate needs of the local civilians. On this point, I wish to reiterate that Azerbaijan is determined to reintegrate ethnic Armenian residents of the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan as equal citizens. The constitution, the national legislation of Azerbaijan, and the international commitments we have undertaken provide the solid ground to this end.
The international community should undertake all the efforts for an immediate deployment of an interagency mission by the United Nations to Nagorno-Karabakh with the aim to monitor and access the human rights, humanitarian and security situation on the ground.
Let's go to our correspondent Osama bin Javaid. He joins us now live from the capital of Azerbaijan in Baku. So, Osama, good to see you. Firstly, bring us up to date with the latest developments.
Well, much needed aid has now reached the Karabakh region. We've been hearing from officials here in Baku who say that the corridors have been opened not just for the ICRC from the Armenian side, but there are more supplies that are going in from the Azerbaijani side as well to reach these people. And as the Azerbaijani government says that it is responsible for the people who are there, as it is Azerbaijani territory. To tell us more about it, we have an advisor to President Aliyev, Mr. Hikmet Hajiyev, with us. Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us about the situation of the people in Nagorno-Karabakh and how is the aid reaching people?
In Yevlakh, Azerbaijani representative also had a meeting with the representative of Armenian residents of Karabakh region of Azerbaijan, and within that meeting, the broad agenda has been discussed, and also Azerbaijan's proposals with regard to social, economic, and political reintegration. In the meantime, humanitarian issues. And on that meeting, we have identified what are the local requirements and needs, and immediately Azerbaijani government has reacted. Upon the decree of Azerbaijani president and under the deputy prime minister, special working group has been established, but it involves all appropriate government institutions. We are receiving inquiries, but immediately responding to that inquiries. First, humanitarian delivery has been rendered to Karabakh Armenians through the Aghdam-Khankandi road, and it has already reached destination and distributed for the local residents. And in the meantime, there was a special need for oil and gasoline, especially for electricity generator machines, and it also been provided yesterday. In the meantime, we are working with an ICRC and Russian peacekeepers on the ground, and through their channels also to ameliorate humanitarian situation and also to respond to the needs and requirements on the ground. And Azerbaijan, as a goodwill gesture, ensured further operationality of Lachand-Khankandi road for the ICRC deliveries to Khankandi. And in the meantime, we are also providing and asking that if any kind of need for the ICRC, for the logistic support of Azerbaijani government, and we will ameliorate. And in the meantime, ICRC asked us for passage of additional personnel, and we also positively reacted to that. In the meantime, we are also assessing the situation on the ground and trying to deliver our targeted humanitarian deliveries to the local population on the ground. But along with that, Azerbaijan is also preparing its own plan with regard to short-term and mid-term political, economic and social reintegration.
That is going to be my next question, that it is important that there is stability, this flare-up of violence doesn't happen, because the pictures that we've been seeing from Stepanakert, which is known as Khan Kandi in Azerbaijan, is people hunkering in bunkers, damage to a lot of property. How are you going to avoid that in the future?
Really, the situation is currently stable to an extent, except in some very sporadic actions at a very low level on the ground. Important thing is that on the 20th September, counter-offense has already halted because counter-terrorism actions on the ground has been halted, and because on the condition that the local armed forces on the ground and they will disarm, and this disarmament has also been started, and demobilization has already started because yesterday within a so-called regime has already made a statement that dissolving their armed forces, or so-called their Minister of Defense, and we are also started the process of collecting arms and ammunition. But of course it's another issue that we have been surprised even to see such a huge amount of ammunition and weapons accumulated in that area. It's probably the most militarized area on the ground. For the peaceful reintegration process, that's called the DDR. The demobilization, disarmament are crucial components of the peaceful reintegration process. I think that with disarmament process is also going on the ground, but with regard to the local population on the ground and local residents, Azerbaijan is ready to provide all humanitarian assistance, and Azerbaijan's agenda about peaceful reintegration, as also the actions on the ground once again demonstrated that how Azerbaijan was carefully approaching with residents and civilian residents on the ground and avoiding by all means any kind of collateral damage. But in the meantime, what we see on the ground that Azerbaijani civilian, military and police personnel on the ground are helping the civilians and bringing them to hospitals in case of need, and providing food and shelter. In immediate aftermath of every conflict situation, there are humanitarian issues are emerging. But important thing that first, Azerbaijani government has a stronger willingness, and we provide the rights and security of Karabakh residents. And in the meantime, we have all necessary means in terms of the humanitarian support and in terms of the social economic reintegration.
There's a significant announcement that you just told me about from your president, that there is going to be an amnesty for the civilians living in Stepanakert, Khan Kandi, and the Nagorno-Karabakh, but there are some conditions attached to it. Can you please tell us more about it?
Well, with the civilians, there is no question as well, because simply Azerbaijan considers with civilians its own citizens, and we do perceive
But the people who've been fighting against...
Yes, of course. With regard to them, as part of the 20th September of halting the counter-terrorist actions, Azerbaijan made it very clear that who puts guns down from the Second Karabakh War, 44 days war, and the recent engagement, simply they are free. And here we should differentiate two groups of people. One group is servicemen of the armed forces of the Republic of Armenia. If they also put the gun down, and they can return back to the Republic of Armenia. As part of this armament, it's also a demobilization process as such. And also local residents who were holding their arms, and if they put also their guns down, and they can return to their barracks, and from there to demobilize. Simply, they are free. And here should be better understanding for everybody what is the differentiation. Differentiation, we are talking about some selective couple of people who in the First Karabakh War committed crimes, war crimes against Azerbaijani civilians in a very broader scale. We are talking about them, and mainly they were at the leadership of the so-called illegal regime. Again, these are particular individuals and selective individuals, but we are talking about that. But with the majority male generation, male population, we don't have a problem. In a broader sense, with the civilians, and we shouldn't have a problem, as on the contrary, we are inviting them, and we are trying to reach out to the different channels. I would also really commend the very first fact that the direct engagement of central Azerbaijani government invited representatives of Armenian residents of Karabakh to have a direct communication on the broad agenda of the issues, including the political reintegration model, social economic issues, and they asked certain issues, and central government of Azerbaijan immediately reacted and will continue to do so, and then more intensive meetings are coming forward as well to meet all of these immediate requirements.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hikmet Hajiyev, President Advisor to the President, here talking to us in Baku. And significant is the Azerbaijani government saying that it is going to give amnesty to the people, even who had taken up arms, as long as they're not involved in war crimes, as long as they're not servicemen and military personnel of the Armenian government. So aid has arrived. The situation seems to be improving, and there seems to be no ultimatum from the Azerbaijani sides on when these forces should lay down their arms. But as the world watches closely, it is a region which has been prone to violence, and any little flare-up can lead to further tensions.
OK, really good to talk to you, Osama bin Javaid, there for us in Baku. Let's go to Sheila Paylan. She joins us from Armenia's capital, Yerevan. She's an international human rights lawyer. You were listening into that interview that Osama bin Javaid was doing with that Azerbaijani presidential spokesman. And he was very keen to make that point that ethnic Armenians will be treated and integrated as equal citizens. But how do they really feel about it? Do they believe that will be the case?
Absolutely not. Nobody believes that'll be the case. To the extent that the Azerbaijani government considers the Armenians of Karabakh to be its own citizens, they are the most despised then minority of the country. There's a longstanding state policy of hatred against Armenians that goes back decades, that just doesn't stop overnight. And also Azerbaijan has made these statements before and has acted completely in contradiction with statements of that sort. There's no reasonable basis to trust that there will be any safety or security or rights protected for the Armenians of Karabakh, and they want to leave. They don't want to live under Azerbaijani rule. So they're asking for the corridor to be open and for there needs to be an international presence to assist an evacuation to get the Armenians out, because they are actually very, very, very much in danger right now.
And what about this idea that we heard about amnesties for those civilians who've actually did take up arms? The Azerbaijanis, again, saying, you know, they're going to be fine. Does that ring true to you?
Absolutely not. They're not going to be fine. Any able-bodied man beyond a certain age is considered a terrorist, is considered a criminal. Again, like I said, Azerbaijan doesn't keep its promises. So we have a situation where they're not going to be first they'll probably be arrested, detained, and then considered for amnesty or not, if that's even true. Most likely that's not going to be true, and they will be put through mass trials. So it's not, you know, okay, we can hope that it's true, but there's no action so far from the Azerbaijani government in the last, in how many years, that suggests that anything they say is accurate. They don't, they want to make a show of this. They want to make a show of, we've won, we got rid of the terrorists. These are not terrorists. The disarmament is not an anti-terrorist operation. This was a defense army, a group of Armenians who have been living in fear for 3 decades, and people are allowed to defend themselves from violence and aggression. This disarmament process has been too fast, too rapid. They have been disarmed, and now they're extremely vulnerable.
What do you... Apologies. I wanted to find out what you're hearing about the ordinary citizens of Nagorno-Karabakh. We understand many are without food, fuel, but again, we heard from the Azerbaijani minister, spokesperson there, saying that aid is coming in. What is the situation on the ground as far as you know it?
As far as we know, and it's hard to know because there are no international journalists on the ground, Azerbaijan is is trying to keep everything as opaque and not transparent as possible. Journalists weren't allowed to be at the peace talks either, the recent ones. So we did see yesterday 2 ICRC convoy trucks reach the illegal checkpoint at the Lachin corridor at about 4 p.m. and they only got through at midnight last night. Now, this is after 9 months of starving this population. 2 trucks is not, it's too little too late. The last one was one truck from the Aghdam corridor 2 days prior. So the trickle is just, it's almost meant to keep them barely alive. It's not, this isn't real. And they need more than just a little bit of bread. You know, they haven't had any nutrition for months and months. They're weak, they're scared, they're terrified. They don't have a means of communicating consistently or reliably, and they're burying their loved ones in the several hundreds in basically mass lined up graves at the moment. You can imagine how broken they are.
We heard from the Armenian envoy at the UN pushing for a UN mission to monitor the humanitarian conditions and monitor the situation on the ground. How likely is it that something like that will happen?
I hope it's going to happen. I don't know how likely it is. If it's going to depend on a UN Security Council consensus and without a veto of the P5 members, it's almost quite unlikely. If it's not that, then I think we do have a good chance, and it's extremely necessary. So the language around there being an internationally assisted presence, monitoring, be it an evacuation, is growing, and it's good, and it's extremely necessary right now. So I think given how dire the situation is, the human rights lawyer in me is going to say, we're there, this is coming. So I'm going to be optimistic that we'll get this convoy.
Thank you so much for your time, Sheila Paylan, joining us there from Yerevan, international human rights lawyer. Thank you.